Imagine for a second that I told you a story about a man. I'm not going to tell you his name. I'm not going to tell you where he was born or what he looks like or even what language he spoke.
Okay.
The only thing I am going to tell you is that he lived a long, prosperous, successful life in the world of the Chicago gangsters of the 1920s.
Right. A survivor in the era of Al Capone.
Exactly. He didn't just survive a week or a month. I mean, he prospered for decades in that specific brutal environment.
Hmm.
Now, knowing just that one fact, you could probably make some pretty accurate guesses about his character, couldn't you?
You certainly could, yeah. You wouldn't assume he was, a pushover. You'd assume with a pretty high degree of confidence that he was tough. You'd guess he probably had a quick trigger finger.
Right.
You'd also probably assume he was capable of attracting loyal allies, but also that he was, ruthless when it came to his own survival.
Right. You wouldn't expect him to be a saint. You would not expect him to be the kind of guy who just gives everything away out of the kindness of his heart.
No, because in that environment, saints don't make it to old age. The system filters them out.
Exactly. And this is the central metaphor that kicks off the book we are diving into today. It is a book that, and I'm not exaggerating, completely changed the way we look at biology and, frankly, the way we look at ourselves.
It really did.
We are talking about Richard Dawkins' masterpiece, The Selfish Gene.
It is a seminal text. It's absolutely one of those books that once you read it, you can never really unread it.
Yeah.
It changes the filter through which you see the world.
It really does.
And that Chicago gangster analogy is just so crucial because Dawkins uses it to set the stage for a very specific, very hard-nosed biological premise.
Rich is.
He argues that we, and not just humans, but lions, fish, bacteria, even the fungus on your shower curtain, we are all survival machines.
Survival machine.
We're robots, essentially, programmed by our genes. And our genes, just like that Chicago gangster, have survived for millions upon millions of years in a highly competitive world.
So, if we follow the logic, if our genes are the ultimate survivors in a ruthless world, if they are the Al Capones of the molecular level, then we should expect a predominant quality in those genes to be ruthless selfishness.
That is the thesis. And this gene selfishness will usually, not always, but usually give rise to selfishness in individual behavior. Now that sounds, it sounds bleak. I can see you frowning already.
It sounds incredibly depressing. It sounds like a justification for everyone acting like a jerk.
And that is exactly why we need to unpack this so carefully, because the mission of this whole deep dive is to explore what Dawkins actually means by selfish.
It's not selfish in the way we normally think of it.
Not at all. And we really want to help you, the listener, unlearn that old high school biology idea that evolution works for the good of the species.
Oh, that's the big one, isn't it? I feel like if you stop 10 people on the street and ask them how evolution works, 9 of them would say something like, well, lions hunt so that the lion species can survive. Or birds warn each other of predators to save the flock.
Right. For the good of the group. And Dawkins is here to tell us that is just plain wrong. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of the actual mechanics of nature.
So what's the fix?
We need to shift our perspective. We have to move from looking at the individual animal as the main character to what he calls the gene's eye view of nature.
He uses this great image to explain this shift. The Necker cube. I hadn't thought about that optical illusion in years.
Yes, the Necker cube. It's perfect. It's a simple two-dimensional drawing of like a wireframe cube. And if you stare at it, sometimes the front face looks like it's facing down and to the left.
Right, I can picture it now.
Then you blink or just sort of unfocus your eyes, and suddenly it looks like it's facing up and to the right.
But the drawing on the paper hasn't changed at all.
No. The data is identical. All that's changed is your perception of the data. Your perspective has flipped.
And that's what he's doing with Darwinism.
Exactly. Dawkins admits right up front he isn't necessarily proposing a new set of facts or some new experimental discovery that nobody knew about. He's proposing a shift in the angle of vision. He wants us to flip the cube.
Okay, so what is the flip? What are we looking at before and after? What are the two sides of this cube?
Well, the standard view, the one we all learned in school, is that the individual is the important thing. The body, the lion. the person.
And the genes are
The
just.
genes are just the recipe. The blueprint used to build the lion.
Okay, that's side one of the cube. What's the flip?
Dawkins wants us to flip it. He wants us to see that the gene is the fundamental unit. The gene is the replicator. That's the thing that copies itself and potentially lasts forever. And the organism, the body, is just the vehicle.
The vehicle, like a car.
Exactly. The body is a heavy, clumsy, mortal robot built by the genes to carry them around and protect them from the elements.
So the body dies.
The vehicle goes to the scrapyard. But the genes inside, if they are successful genes, they get copied and move on. They are the passengers that survive the crash and get into a new car.
Before we go any further into this mechanical, ruthless world, we need to drop a pretty heavy disclaimer, don't we?
Absolutely.
Because when people hear selfish gene and they hear us talking about gangsters and ruthlessness, they often think this is a prescription for how we should act.
It is absolutely critical to make this distinction right now. If you take nothing else away from this intro, let it be this. This is a book about how nature does behave, not how humans ought to behave.
So we are not saying, hey, your genes are selfish, so you should go cheat on your taxes and push people out of the way in line.
God, no, not at all. Dawkins is crystal clear on this. He is not advocating a morality based on evolution. In fact, he says quite explicitly that a human society based simply on the gene's law of universal ruthless selfishness would be a very, very nasty society to live in.
Okay, so why study it then?
We are discussing this to understand our origins, not to derive our ethics.
We study the gangster
Yeah.
to understand the crime, not to become criminals ourselves.
Precisely. We study the selfishness of the gene, perhaps, so we can learn how to upset its designs.
Upset its designs.
Yes, we are the only species that can actually rebel against our creators in that sense. But to understand the rebellion, you have to first understand the programming.
Okay, let's go back then. Way, way back. If we want to understand the gangster, we have to understand the neighborhood he grew up in. So let's talk about the before times. Before there were lions, before bacteria, before anything we would recognize as life.
We have to imagine the primeval soup. This is maybe 3,000 to 4,000 million years ago.
That's a time scale that's hard to even comprehend.
It's basically impossible, but picture it. The sea is effectively a warm, dilute broth of simple chemical compounds. You've got plenty of water, carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, all floating around.
It doesn't sound very hospitable.
It wasn't. This soup is being constantly battered by energy. You have lightning flashing all the time, intense ultraviolet light from the sun. Remember, there's no ozone layer yet to block it.
So it's a high-energy chemical stew.
Exactly. And at this point, it's just chemistry and physics. There is no biology yet.
So how do you get from chemistry to biology?
Well, in the lab, if you simulate these conditions, if you put these simple chemicals in a flask and you blast them with sparks, after a few weeks, something really interesting happens.
What's that?
You find more complex molecules, you find amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins. You even find the building blocks of DNA itself, things called purines and pyrimidines.
So the basic ingredients for life are just cooking themselves up out of physics.
Yeah.
But why would they form anything complex? Why wouldn't they just stay simple?
This is a point Dawkins makes that I just love. Before we can even talk about survival of the fittest, we have to talk about survival of the stable.
Survival of the stable. Okay, what does that mean?
Think about it. The absolute earliest form of natural selection was simply a selection for stable forms and a rejection of unstable ones.
So it's not a competition yet.
Not at all. It's just physics. If a group of atoms bumps into each other and forms a pattern that falls apart immediately, well, it disappears. But if they bump into each other and form a pattern that is chemically stable, that pattern tends to stick around.
It's like a sieve. You shake a sieve full of rocks, the small ones fall through, the big ones stay. The big rocks didn't want to stay. They just happen to have the property of bigness.
That's a perfect analogy. The molecules didn't want to survive. They just happened to be stable. So the soup, slowly, over millions of years, starts to fill up with these more complex, stable molecules.
Okay, so the soup is getting richer.
And then something remarkable happens. It might have been a 1 in a billion chance. But given millions and millions of years, the improbable becomes almost inevitable.
The accident.
The accident. A molecule is formed that has a very specific, very weird superpower. Dawkins calls it the replicator.
Now, when you say replicator, my mind immediately goes to, like, a photocopier. But this wasn't a machine.
Oh, no, it's just a molecule. Think of it more like a mold or a template.
A template.
Yeah, imagine a long chain of atoms floating in the soup. And because of its specific chemical shape, It attracts other building block atoms that are floating nearby.
Hidden magnet.
Sort of, yeah. Specific atoms are attracted to specific parts of the chain. So these free-floating building blocks line up along the original chain, almost like they're snapping into place.
Okay.
And when they line up and bond together, they form a new chain that mirrors the original.
Like a negative photograph.
Exactly. A negative copy.
Yeah.
And then that negative can break away, and it can act as a template to make another positive, and then that positive makes a negative, and so on.
And suddenly you have a mechanism for copying.
You have a mechanism for copying. Stability has entered the world, but now it has a way to multiply. This is the spark.
And this is where the evolution part really kicks in, even before we have what we would call life. Because not all of these replicators are going to be exactly the same, right? There would be mistakes.
Right. The copying process isn't perfect. Errors happen, mutations, and this introduces variation. So now you have a population of different replicators, and some are slightly different from others.
And some will be better than others.
And that's where selection starts. Dawkins identifies 3 qualities, 3 trends, that would immediately determine which of these molecules succeed in this primeval environment.
Okay, let's break these down. The 3 qualities of a successful replicator. What's number 1?
The first is longevity.
Which makes perfect sense. If a molecule just breaks apart 5 seconds after it forms, it's not going to have time to make many copies.
Correct. So molecules that are more chemically stable, that simply last longer, will become more numerous in the soup. They just have more time to sit around and reproduce.
Simple enough. What's the second quality?
The second is fecundity.
Which is a fancy word for
Yeah.
just speed of reproduction.
Yeah. Right. Imagine you have molecule A, and it makes a copy of itself, on average, once a week. And then you have molecule B, and it makes a copy once an hour.
Molecule B is going to win.
It's going to overrun the soup. Even if molecule A is better in some other way, like it's more stable, molecule B is going to win just by sheer numbers. Fast copiers dominate.
It's a numbers game.
Purely. And the third quality, and this one is a bit tricky, is copying fidelity.
Fidelity. So accuracy.
Accuracy.
Oh, wait, hold on. Didn't you just say that errors were necessary for evolution? That mistakes are how we get variety in the first place?
That is the great paradox. You're absolutely right. For evolution to occur, for the system to change and improve over time, you absolutely need errors. You need mutations.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of the individual replicator, errors are disastrous.
Why? Why is that?
Because if you copy yourself poorly, you are creating a broken copy. Think of it like this. If I photocopy a document, and then I photocopy the copy, and then I photocopy that copy, and keep doing that 1,000 times.
Eventually, the text becomes an unreadable smudge.
Exactly. If a replicator makes too many mistakes, its descendants will lose the very ability to replicate. They'll just fade away. They'll go extinct. So natural selection heavily, heavily favors those who are good at copying accurately.
Even though the whole process relies on the occasional lucky mistake to create something new and better.
That's the tension at the heart of it. High fidelity with just a tiny bit of error is the sweet spot.
Okay, so we have this soup, and it's filling up with these replicators. We have the long-lasting ones, the fast ones, the accurate ones. But the soup itself, it's not infinite.
No. And this is where the story turns violent. The building blocks, the food, essentially start to run out. The soup becomes crowded. The chemical resources are getting scarce.
EV life is over.
The EV life is over. Now you have competition.
They are literally fighting for food. Molecules fighting.
In a way, yes. They are fighting for the existence of their line. Replicators with new properties start to emerge. Some of them discover a new trick. They evolve the ability to chemically break down rival replicators and use their component parts to build their own copies.
Oh, wow. The first predators.
In a molecular sense, yes. I'm not just going to wait for a building block to float by. I'm going to tear apart my neighbor and take his.
So it's an arms race.
It's the beginning of an arms race. To protect themselves from these new chemical attacks, other replicators start building defenses. They construct physical walls of protein around themselves.
And this is the birth of the survival machine.
Yes, the very first cells. The replicator is no longer just floating free. It's inside a tank. It's wrapped in a protective coat.
And from there, the arms race just escalates.
It escalates for millions of years. The protective coats get tougher. They get more complex. The survival machines start to merge. Cells become colonies. Colonies become differentiated bodies. They develop specialized parts to sense the world, to move, to eat other survival machines.
The survival machines just got bigger and bigger and more elaborate until they became us.
That is the reveal. That is the great insight. Those ancient replicators didn't die out. They are still here. They are inside you and me. They created us, body and mind, for the sole purpose of preserving themselves.
We call them genes.
We call them genes, and we are their survival machines.
It really is a complete shift in perspective. I usually think of my genes as, part of me. Like, oh, I have my dad's nose or I have my mom's eyes. But this view says I am a temporary tool for them.
Precisely. You are the vehicle. And this brings us to what a gene actually is in this context, because it's important. Dawkins isn't just talking about a single strip of DNA that codes for blue eyes.
It's a broader definition.
It's a functional definition. He defines a gene as any portion of a chromosome which lasts for enough generations to serve as a unit of natural selection.
He talks about this in terms of immortality, which sounds strange. I mean, I'm definitely not immortal.
No, you are not. Think about the individual, the vehicle. You and I are fleeting. We're temporary. We live for a few decades, and then we're gone.
Right.
And even our chromosomes, the collections of genes we get from our parents, are temporary. When we have children, our chromosomes are shuffled like a deck of cards.
Let's stay on that card analogy. I think that really helps clarify it.
Okay, so imagine a full deck of cards. Each individual card is a gene.
And the hand that's dealt, that's me.
That's you. You are a specific combination of cards. That hand is unique. It has never existed before. And once the game is over, once you die, that specific combination of cards will never exist again. The hand is temporary.
But the cards.
The cards survive the shuffling. The cards, the genes, are what persist. They get passed on to the next hand and the next. A single gene, in the form of its copies, can live for millions of years, jumping from body to body, generation after generation.
So it's the only thing that lasts long enough to be selected for.
It is the only thing stable enough for natural selection to act upon. The individual is too temporary. The group is too temporary. Only the gene is a true replicator in deep time.
So if these genes are the immortals, and we are just their robots, how much control do they actually have over us? I mean, I feel like I'm in charge. I decided to drink coffee this morning. My genes didn't send me a telegram telling me to do that.
That's a great point, and it leads to what Dawkins calls the time lag problem.
The time lag.
Yeah. Genes are, at their core, just chemical instructions. They work by controlling protein synthesis. That process is incredibly slow. It takes months to build an embryo. They can't possibly react to a tiger jumping out of the bushes in real time.
So they can't drive the car. They can't be the puppet masters pulling the strings second by second.
No. They are more like a computer programmer who writes the code for a chess-playing computer.
Okay, let's unpack that. I like the chess idea.
Right. So when you program a computer to play chess, the programmer, you don't sit there during the actual match and tell it every single move to make.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not there. Or maybe the computer's on a spaceship on Mars and there's a 20-minute communication delay.
Exactly. So the programmer has to build in the strategy in advance. You program the computer with general rules, with strategies. You give it axioms like don't lose your queen, or control the center of the board, or look ahead 3 moves.
You build the logic.
You build the logic and then you let it go. Once the game starts, the programmer is out of the picture. The computer is on its own, executing the pre-programmed strategy in a changing environment.
So the genes program our brains in advance.
That is the theory. They build a brain that is capable of learning, simulation, and prediction. They build a machine that finds sugar sweet and the smell of decay disgusting. They build a machine that finds height scary and social connection pleasurable.
So they set the goals.
They set the ultimate goals: survival, reproduction, and then they sit back passively inside the robot. The brain, the nervous system, makes the moment-to-moment executive decisions.
And what about consciousness, that feeling of me that's making the decisions?
In this view, consciousness is the culmination of that process. It's the brain's simulation of the world becoming so complete that it has to include a model of itself within the simulation.
Wow.
It's the executive function. It's the surrogate for the gene's survival instinct, but it can operate much, much faster. It allows the robot to make incredibly complex predictions to keep the genes inside safe.
So we are robots, but we are very smart robots. We've been given a long leash.
A very long leash. But the tug of that leash is still there. Try holding your breath until you die.
You can't.
You can't. At a certain point, the gene's programming will override your free will and force you to gasp for air. That's the programmer stepping in and saying, don't break the survival machine.
Okay, let's talk more about that tug. Because if genes are purely selfish, if they only care about their own replication, how do we explain kindness? How do we explain altruism?
Yes, the altruism problem. This is the biggest seeming contradiction.
Yeah. I mean, if I see a burning building and my brother is inside, my first instinct might be to run in and save him. I might die doing it. From the outside, that looks like the ultimate evolutionary failure. My genes perish. My vehicle is destroyed. How could a gene for suicide missions ever survive?
It does seem impossible if you're looking at it from the perspective of the individual organism.
Right.
But remember, we have to flip the cube. We have to look from the gene's perspective. And this brings us to one of the most powerful ideas in the book, kin selection.
Which is very different from group selection, right?
Yeah.
People are always mixing these two up.
Very different. Group selection is that old, fuzzy idea, I sacrifice myself for the good of the species. Dawkins argues that just doesn't work mathematically. It's not stable.
So what's kin selection?
Kin selection says a gene will allow its vehicle to be sacrificed if that act helps save enough other vehicles that carry copies of the very same gene.
So it's gene selfishness disguised as individual altruism.
That's the perfect way to put it. A gene for saving your family isn't being nice. It's just a gene trying to save copies of itself that happen to be sitting inside the bodies of your family members.
And there's actual math behind this.
Yeah.
This isn't just a metaphor.
Oh, there is absolutely math behind it. It comes from the biologist W.D. Hamilton. It's called Hamilton's rule, and it's all about the coefficient of relatedness, which we call dollars.
Okay, I want to walk through this math because this is the part where biology starts to feel more like accounting.
It really is genetic accounting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start simply. You share, on average, 50% of your unique genes with your parents.
Right, half from mom, half from dad.
And you also share, on average, 50% with your full siblings. So for your brother, your 2 equals your 0.5.
Okay, what about, say, a first cousin?
That's more distant. The chance of any particular gene being shared is 12.5% or 1/8. So 3 is 0.125 cents.
So from a purely genetic standpoint, me staying alive is worth 1 unit of myself. Saving my brother is worth 0.5 units. Saving my cousin is worth 0.125 units.
Exactly. So now let's go back to the burning building. If you run in and die, a cost of 1 to your genes, to save 1 brother, a benefit of 0.5, that is a bad trade for the gene.
The gene loses out.
The gene for that behavior will die out. It's an unprofitable action. But what if you run in and die to save 3 of your brothers?
Okay, let's do the math. The cost is still 1 because I die. But the benefit is 3 brothers times 0.5 each. That's 1.5.
Exactly. And 1.5 is greater than 1. The gene has made a profit. It lost 1 copy, the one in you, but it saved 3 copies, the ones in your brothers. So that gene for run into burning buildings to save 3 siblings will tend to spread in the population.
That is incredibly cold and calculating. It's like, sorry, cousin, I can't jump in the river to save you. You're only 1/8 of me. Now, if you can find 4 more cousins in the water with you, we'll talk.
It sounds absurd when we say it like that because animals don't walk around with calculators. They don't check birth certificates and do fractions, but they behave as if they have performed the calculation. Natural selection has built brains that intuitively follow this ruthless math.
But how do they even know? I mean, humans have family records. How does a bird know who its brother is versus its cousin or a stranger?
That's the recognition problem. And Dawkins uses a great thought experiment to explain it, the greenbeard effect.
The green beard.
Yeah, imagine a hypothetical gene that has 2 effects. First, it gives you a visible marker, like a green beard. And second, it makes you act altruistically towards anyone else you see with a green beard.
It's like a secret society. I see the badge, I know you're in the club, so I'll help you.
Exactly. It would be a perfect way to recognize other bodies that are carrying copies of your help your kin gene. But of course, green beards are rare in nature, so animals use proxies. Rules of thumb.
What kind of rules?
For a bird, a very common rule might be nice to any other small bird that is sitting in your nest.
Because usually the other birds in your nest are your siblings.
Usually is the key word. Evolution is a messy hacker. It doesn't build perfect systems. It uses whatever statistical trick works most of the time.
And this is where things like cuckoos come in.
Exactly. The cuckoo bird exploits that rule. It lays its egg in a small warbler's nest. The baby cuckoo hatches, and it's this giant monster.
That pushes the warbler's own eggs out of the nest.
Yes. But the parent warbler just follows its simple pre-programmed rule, be nice to the bird in my nest. So it ends up feeding the killer of its own children. Its rule of thumb has been hacked.
The programming misfires.
It misfires. But the rule exists because, statistically, 99.9% of the time, the thing in your nest is your own kid, so the rule works out for the genes of the warbler.
This idea of caring for kin brings us to the family unit itself. We tend to think of the bond between a mother and child as the purest, most selfless love imaginable. But Dawkins? Well, he basically ruins that too, doesn't he?
Yep. He certainly complicates it. He introduces the concept of parent-offspring conflict. We automatically assume the mother and child have the exact same interests, but genetically they don't.
Because the math is different for each of them.
The math is different. The mother is related to all of her children equally. Each one carries 50% of her genes, so she wants to distribute her resources, her food, her protection, to maximize the survival of all her offspring equally.
But the child?
The child is related to itself 100%, obviously, but it's only related to its full siblings by 50%.
So from the child's genetic point of view, it cares about itself twice as much as it cares about its brothers and sisters.
Exactly. The child is, genetically speaking, twice as valuable to itself as its siblings are. So there is a built-in conflict of interest. The mother wants to share the pizza equally. Each child wants more than its fair share.
So the child is a manipulator.
A ruthless one. Think about the conflict over weaning. The mother wants to stop nursing the child at a certain point so she can save her energy and resources to have a future child.
Which also has 50% of her genes.
Right. But the current child wants to keep nursing for as long as possible. Why? Because that milk is going into 100% investment itself. If the mother saves that energy for a new sibling, that benefit is only going to a 50% relation.
So the tantrums, the crying, the waking up in the middle of the night.
It's chemical warfare. It's psychological manipulation. The child will, in an evolutionary sense, deceive. It will pretend to be hungrier than it is. It will pretend to be younger than it is, all to extract more than its fair share of parental investment.
There's a really dark example in the book about runts. This one really stuck with me.
Yes. The point of no return calculation.
It's the idea of the runt, basically committing suicide for the good of the family.
It sounds horrific, but if you follow the gene's logic, it makes a terrible kind of sense. Sometimes the mother has a runt in the litter. This animal is weak, it's small, it requires a lot of food just to have a small chance of survival. Maybe more food than it would take to raise 2 healthy babies to adulthood.
So the mother's genes should tell her to stop feeding it and cut her losses.
The mother's genes should, yes. But here's the twist. The gene inside the runt's own body might actually be the one to give the command to just give up and die.
Why? Why would a gene ever say, kill this body?
Because of kin selection, remember the math? The gene doesn't care about any single body. It cares about its copies. If the runt's continued survival requires so much investment that it endangers the lives of its healthy brothers and sisters,
Who also carry copies of that same gene.
then the gene's best move is to sacrifice the weak body to save the stronger ones. The gene in the runt says, it is better for my copies in those other bodies if this body dies now. If the runt consumes all the milk and the whole litter perishes, the gene dies out in all of them. If the runt dies early and the others live, the gene lives on in the siblings. It is a calculated genetic suicide for the greater genetic good.
That is just staggering.
Mm.
It paints nature as this constant battleground, not just between species, but within families, and even between parents. The battle of the sexes.
Oh, absolutely. And this battle goes all the way back to the fundamental definition of male and female. It's not about pronouns or culture. Biologically, it's about the size of the gametes.
The sex cells.
Yes. Sperm is cheap, it's tiny, it's mobile, it has almost no nutrients, and males produce millions, even billions of them. Eggs are expensive, they are large, they contain the food store for the embryo, and they are strictly limited in number.
So the female starts out with a much bigger investment right from the very beginning.
Right from conception, she has put more in. And because of that initial asymmetry, the male has a built-in incentive to exploit the female.
How so?
Well, theoretically, a male's reproductive output is limited only by the number of females he can find to mate with. A female's output is limited by the long, costly time it takes to gestate and raise the offspring.
So the female is the valuable, scarce resource that the males are competing for.
Yes. She is the limiting factor. And because she holds the valuable card, the egg, she gets to be choosy. She's the one who gets courted. And Dawkins outlines strategies females use to try and avoid being exploited by a deadbeat dad who mates and then runs.
It's a negotiation.
It's a high-stakes poker game played over evolutionary time. One strategy he calls the domestic bliss strategy.
Domestic bliss.
Here, the female forces the male to wait. She plays hard to get. She demands a long courtship. She might make him build a nest or bring her food for weeks.
She's making him pay up front, invest his time and energy before she commits her egg.
Exactly. She's testing his fidelity and his patience. The logic is, if you're willing to wait 3 weeks and build this elaborate nest just to mate, you're probably not the type to run off tomorrow. She wants to ensure he's the stick-around type.
But then there's the other strategy.
Yeah.
The he-man strategy.
This is what a female does when she basically resigns herself to the fact that the male isn't going to help raise the kids. He's a deadbeat. He's going to leave no matter what.
So if he's going to leave anyway, what does she want from him?
She wants his genes. She wants the best possible genes for her children. She abandons all hope of him helping and just goes for pure genetic quality.
So she looks for the peacock's tail, the biggest antlers, the loudest roar.
Exactly. Those things are signals of good health, of strong survival genes. She is trading paternal help for genetic quality. She wants her sons to inherit that attractiveness so they can go on to have lots of kids and pass on her genes too.
It really is a marketplace.
Yeah.
But, okay, what about when we deal with strangers? We've talked about family, which is all kin selection. But animals cooperate with non-relatives all the time. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. How does the selfish gene explain that?
This takes us out of the realm of family and into the world of game theory, specifically the concept of reciprocal altruism.
The famous prisoner's dilemma. I want to really visualize this because the book gets pretty abstract here. Let's try to role play it.
Okay, perfect. Let's use Dawkins' own example of birds grooming ticks off each other.
Okay, ticks are dangerous. They carry disease. I'm a bird. I have a tick on the top of my head where I can't reach it. I need you to pull it off for me.
And grooming me takes your time and energy. It's a small cost to you.
Right. So Dawkins simulates what happens when you have 3 different personality types or strategies in a population. First up, you have the suckers.
The suckers are the indiscriminate altruists. They're just purely nice. They will groom anyone who asks, no questions asked.
Well, I'm a sucker. You're another bird. You have a tick. You ask me to groom you. I do it. End of story.
Great. I'm happy. Now, suppose I'm not a sucker. Suppose I'm a cheat.
Okay, you're a cheat. You never help anyone. Now I have a tick. I ask you to groom me.
I refuse. I just accept your grooming when I need it, but when you ask, I fly away.
So I'm left with the tick. I might get sick and die. I paid the cost to help you, but I got absolutely no benefit in return.
Exactly. So in a population of nice guy suckers, if one cheat appears, the cheat wins big time. He gets groomed by everyone, he pays no costs, and he uses all that extra energy to have more babies. His cheat genes spread like wildfire.
And the poor suckers die out because they're wasting all their time grooming these ungrateful cheeks and getting eaten by ticks themselves.
Right. So a population of pure, unconditional altruists is not stable. It can be invaded and destroyed by selfishness. The nice guy strategy crashes.
But wait a second. If the suckers all die out and the population becomes all cheats, what happens then?
That nobody grooms anybody. Everyone is selfish. Everyone keeps their ticks. The population becomes sickly and it crashes. It's a tragedy of the commons.
How do you solve it? How does cooperation ever evolve in a selfish world?
Enter the third strategy, the grudger.
The grudger. I like the sound of this guy already.
The grudger's rule is this. The first time I meet a new bird, I'll be nice. I'll groom them. I start out acting like a sucker. But, Churi, I have a memory. If I groom you and you then refuse to groom me back, I remember your face. I hold a grudge.
I'm never helping that guy again. He's on my list.
Exactly. So let's run the simulation now. A grudger meets a cheat. The grudger, being nice initially, grooms the cheat. The cheat, of course, refuses to return the favor.
So the cheat wins that first interaction.
Yes. But that's the only time he wins. The next time they meet, the cheat asks for grooming and the grudger refuses. The cheat can never exploit that grudger again.
So the cheats eventually run out of victims to exploit.
Exactly. In a population of grudgers, the cheats can't get a foothold. The grudgers groom each other, forming a sort of cooperative club that excludes the parasites. The suckers get wiped out, the cheats can't survive, but the grudgers thrive.
That is fascinating. So the grudger strategy is an ESS, an evolutionarily stable strategy.
Yes, it's stable. Once it dominates the population, neither cheats nor suckers can successfully invade it. And this explains so much about human psychology. It explains why we have a sense of fairness, a desire for reciprocity, and importantly, a sense of vengeance.
Vengeance isn't just a messy emotion. It's a game theory algorithm.
It's an emotional algorithm that helps our brains execute the grudger strategy. That feeling of don't let him get away with it, that's the emotion that protects you from being a sucker.
Now, we have to talk about the ultimate altruists.
Yeah.
This is the part of the book that I think is the hardest to wrap your head around, but it's also the most mind-blowing. I'm talking about the social insects, the bees and the ants.
The kamikaze pilots of the animal kingdom, the true collectivists.
Right. They take cooperation to a level that makes human society look like total anarchy. But there's this huge glaring problem for Darwinism here. The worker bee is sterile. She never has children. She works herself to death for the queen and will die defending the hive.
It baffled Darwin himself. He called it the one special difficulty for his theory. How can a gene for sterility get passed on? If you're sterile, you don't pass on any genes. It seems like a complete evolutionary dead end.
So how does the selfish gene perspective solve this puzzle?
It comes down to the bizarre alien genetics of this particular group of insects. The system is called haplodiploidy.
Haplodiploidy. Okay, take this slow, because this is where my brain starts to break.
Okay, it all comes down to the number of chromosomes. In humans and most animals, you get one set of chromosomes from your mom and one set from your dad. You are diploid, meaning 2 sets.
Okay, 2 sets, got it.
In bees, the female is also diploid. She gets one set from her mother, the queen, and one set from her father, a drone. But the male bee, the drone, he comes from an unfertilized egg. He has no father.
He has no father at all.
No father. He only has one set of chromosomes, which he got from his mother. He is haploid.
Okay, so the male has one set of chromosomes, the female has 2. What is the consequence of that for relatedness?
The math gets completely wild. Let's think about human sisters again. You share 50% of your genes with your sister on average.
Yeah.
Because your dad gave you half his genes, but he had 2 sets to choose from. You might get a set A, your sister might get a set B.
Right, we're different.
But a male bee only has one set of genes. He can't shuffle the deck. He passes his entire genome, 100% of his genes, to every single one of his daughters.
So every daughter gets the exact same set of genes from their father. They're identical on the dad's side.
100% identical from the dad's side. This means that bee sisters are not 50% related, like human sisters. They are, on average, 75% related to each other.
75%? That's higher than they would be to their own children?
Exactly. That is the key aha moment. A worker bee would be related to her own hypothetical child by only 50%, but she is related to her full sister by 75%.
So it is genetically more profitable for her to help raise sisters than to have her own daughters.
Precisely. From her gene's point of view, it pays to farm her mother, the queen, to produce more super-related sisters.
Farm her mother. That is a gene's eye view if I've ever heard one.
It changes the entire picture. We used to think of the colony as like a monarchy where the queen rules over an army of slaves, but Dawkins suggests it's actually a gene farm where the workers are the farmers, and they are using the queen as a highly efficient manufacturing plant for their own genetic copies.
So the workers are the ones in charge, genetically speaking. They're the ones benefiting most from the arrangement.
Yes, it completely flips the script. It takes what looks like the ultimate act of self-sacrifice sterility and reveals it as the ultimate act of genetic selfishness.
And it explains why these super-social societies are so rare. This haplodiploid system is unusual. It's mostly found in ants, bees, and wasps, the exact animals that develop these incredible high cooperation societies. The strange math drove the evolution of the behavior.
It did.
Okay, so we've covered biology, we've covered animals, we've covered the primeval soup. But Dawkins has one more massive idea in this book. And it's the one word from this book that has probably traveled further than any other.
You're talking about memes.
It's so funny. Most people today think a meme is just a funny picture of a cat on the internet with some text on it. But Dawkins actually coined the word back in 1976, long before the internet existed.
He did. He introduced it almost as a thought experiment in Chapter 11. He argued that genes aren't the only replicators on this planet, he asked. Is there another soup, another medium where a new kind of replication is happening?
And that medium is human culture.
The soup is the culture, and the vector, the thing it replicates in, is the human brain. A meme is a unit of cultural transmission. It could be a tune, an idea, a catchphrase, a fashion, a recipe for a cake.
And he argues that these ideas evolve just like genes do. They aren't just stuff we think. They are, in a sense, living things.
In a functional sense, yes, they undergo their own form of natural selection. Think about a catchy song, Happy Birthday, for example. It lodges itself in your brain. You hum it, someone else hears it, it lodges in their brain.
It replicates. It jumps from vehicle to vehicle, from brain to brain.
And it competes. It competes for radio time in the brain. We only have so much memory, so much attention. Ideas are in a constant battle for that space. If you were humming Happy Birthday, you aren't humming a different song. The successful memes drive the unsuccessful ones extinct.
So what makes a meme successful? Is it just about being true?
Definitely not. Just like genes, a meme's success depends on longevity, fecundity, and copying fidelity. But mostly it depends on its psychological appeal. Dawkins takes the God meme, for instance. He analyzes this as a very, very successful meme structure.
And he's looking at it purely as a replicator, regardless of whether it's true or not.
Right. From a memetic point of view, why does it survive so well? Because it provides immense psychological comfort. It answers deep, scary questions about existence and death. It offers the promise of justice in the next life. These features give it a very high survival value in the environment of the human mind.
He also talks about the celibacy meme,
Yeah.
which is a fantastic irony, right? A gene for celibacy would die out in a single generation.
Instant extinction. A gene that says don't have sex has zero fecundity. It's a total failure. But a meme for celibacy, like in a religious priesthood, can be incredibly successful.
But how? It seems like it would stop the host from passing it on.
But the meme isn't passed on through sex. It's passed on through communication. A priest who has no family to raise has much more time to devote to spreading the meme.
So he spends all his energy transmitting the idea verbally by preaching, writing, converting.
Exactly. The meme acts like a parasite. It takes over the host's life and redirects its energy to maximize its own transmission, even at the direct expense of the host's genetic success.
That is a genuinely terrifying thought, that ideas are living structures using our brains as nests.
It brings us to the concept of co-adapted meme complexes. Just like genes work together in the body, genes for sharp teeth and genes for strong claws go well together, memes gang up. Religions or political ideologies act like gene complexes. You don't just get one idea, you get a whole bundle of mutually supporting ideas.
So the idea of hellfire reinforces the God meme. The idea of patriotism reinforces the dying for your country meme.
Exactly. These ideas link arms. If you try to attack or remove one of them, the others protect it. They gang up to defend themselves from rival memes.
So we are gene machines and we are meme machines.
Yes. We are the puppets of two different kinds of replicators, and sometimes they pull us in very different directions. The gene wants you to have kids. The celibacy meme wants you to be a monk.
Before we wrap up, there's one more biological concept he tosses in at the end, or actually he develops it more in his later book, The Extended Phenotype, but he touches on it here. It's the idea that the gene's influence doesn't stop at our skin.
Right. This is where he really dissolves the matrix, so to speak. We usually think the phenotype, the physical expression of a gene, is the body, blue eyes, long legs, that sort of thing. But Dawkins asks, why stop there? Why is the body the boundary? Look at a beaver dam.
A dam is made of wood and mud. It's not part of the beaver's body.
But it is a direct and predictable result of the beaver's genes. If the beaver had different genes, the dam would be shaped differently or not exist at all. The dam is a complex structure built by the beaver to ensure the survival of those genes.
So the dam is part of the beaver's phenotype.
It is part of the beaver's extended phenotype, just as much as its tail is.
That completely blurs the line between the animal and the environment.
It erases the line. Think about parasites. There are these fluke worms that invade snails. The worm's genes release chemicals that manipulate the snail's biology. They make the snail grow a thicker shell.
Wait, the worm's genes change the snail's body.
Yes. The thickness of the snail's shell is being controlled by the worm's genes for the protection of the worm. The long reach of the gene extends out of its own body and into the world, manipulating inanimate objects and even the bodies of other living creatures.
It paints this picture of the world that is this invisible web of genetic influence crossing bodies and borders. It's almost overwhelming. It makes me feel, well, very small.
It is a view of nature that is stark, it's mechanical, and it's fundamentally selfish at its core. It strips away a lot of our comfortable romanticism about Mother Nature.
Which brings us to the end. And the big question, are we doomed? Are we just slaves to these Chicago gangsters in our cells? Is there any way out?
This is where Dawkins, after 300 pages of this hard-nosed logic, offers a glimmer of hope, and it's a very human hope. He says that we, as humans, have one thing that our genes do not have:
Foresight.
Foresight. Genes are blind, they are ancient, they only know short-term gain. The gene's motto is replicate now. They cannot see that overfishing will destroy the food supply in 10 years. They cannot see that overpopulation will lead to a crash.
They're just stupid, short-sighted algorithms.
In that sense, yes, but we can simulate the future. We have this giant brain they built for us.
And we can use it against them.
We can. We can see where pure, unadulterated selfishness leads. We can see the tragedy of the commons playing out with our environment. And because we can see it, we can choose to stop it. We can consciously conspire against our genes.
We use contraception. That is the ultimate rebellion against the gene, isn't it?
It is. Think about it. The sex drive is one of the most powerful instincts the genes gave us. It's their direct line to the future. Our genes are screaming, make copies, and we use our technology and our foresight to say, no, I'd rather have a career or travel or just sleep in on Sundays.
We use the pleasure mechanism the genes gave us to get us to reproduce, but we cut the wire that leads to reproduction. We trick them.
We hack our own programming. It's a profound victory. And we can go further. We can cultivate true, disinterested altruism, something that has no place in nature, something that doesn't obey the mass of kin selection or reciprocity.
We can be nice to people who have no genetic relation to us and can offer us no payback.
We can donate to charity anonymously. We can be better than our creators programmed us to be.
I love that quote at the end of the book. I have it written down here. We are built as gene machines and cultured as meme machines, but we have the power to turn against our creators. We, alone on Earth, can rebel against the tyranny of the selfish replicators.
It's a call to arms, a call to use our unique consciousness to override our base programming, to not just be a robot.
So the next time you feel a sudden, powerful urge to eat that whole box of donuts, or get irrationally angry at a driver who cuts you off, or blindly protect your own group no matter what,
To stop for a second and ask yourself, is that me thinking? Or is that the gangster in the back seat trying to drive the car?
that is the question. And just knowing the gangster's there, that's the first step to taking back the wheel.
Thanks for diving deep with us. It's a whole new and slightly terrifying way to see the world.
It certainly is. The cube is flipped.
We'll see you next time.